Hey, what's up? This is Doc Coyle from Bad Wolves, and you're watching Good Company with Scott Boland.
Wayne's World. Remember Nose Arcade? It's hip, it's hop, it's Nose Arcade.
Yeah, I mean,
Doc's like, I hate
more or less.
you guys and I hate this place.
No, I love it. I'm a huge Wayne's World fan.
Doc Cole, thank you for being on the show, man. This
Thanks
is
for
great,
having me.
perfect. Yeah, you
I
love
know.
Wayne's World? I love Wayne's World.
Yeah, but I have like a very special relationship with Wayne's World.
What? How?
Well, okay, growing up, as a young half black, half white kid in the hood with no access to like a rock and roll scene or culture,
Nice.
It felt like this very aspirational like fantasy world. Like, oh, there's this place where there's like rock music and guitars, and then the Queen song in the movie kind of changed my life. Like just hearing that song.
Was that the first time you heard that song?
Probably.
For me, it was. I was like,
Probably.
what's going on?
But just the whole thing around that was very like influential because film is so important to me, and hearing music in film was very impactful for me.
Yes.
So I don't know. Are we getting ahead of ourselves?
No,
Okay.
I love this. This is Scott Bowling. This is Good Company, and we're talking about Wayne's World. Would you go by yourself to watch Wayne's World?
I mean, I love going to the movies by myself.
But I'm talking
general.
about like me and you were the same age, right? So
I probably would go with my
11 years
brother.
old?
Yeah, I'd probably
Oh,
go
your
with my brother.
Dallas.
Yes.
Yes,
we
man.
would literally walk to the theater once the summer started, and
Yeah.
the theater was a couple miles away. But we would like walk there, then pay for one movie, and then sneak into two more movies. So we would spend all day there. So like it's crazy. If you go to like 90, 91, 92, and you look at all the movies that came
They're
out.
so good, dude.
No, but I'm seeing 30, 40 movies a year in the theater. Like it was nuts, yeah.
That's great, man.
Rutgers Plaza.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
Where'd you grow up
Somerset.
at? Where'd you guys live?
I grew up in New Brunswick, New Jersey, which is a college town. So it's the
Yes.
home of Rutgers University, and urban, mostly black and brown. But because of the university, it had a lot of culture, arts, theaters, museums. And so a lot of that kind of bled into kind of, I think, education and history. There was a lot of, my father and mother were both musicians.
Yes.
So my father was a piano player, mother was a singer. They played in the same band. So I grew up, there was just a lot of music and energy in a city like that.
What kind of music were they into?
So my dad, I would say primarily the stuff he was most passionate about was jazz.
Yeah.
And they played in like a jazz band. So growing up around the house, it's like
That's what
Miles
you heard?
Davis and Duke Ellington and Thelonious Monk, but he was still a kid of the 60s and 70s, so
Yeah.
he had that background of Hendrix and Led Zeppelin, stuff like that, but there was some distance with that. Like he was most passionate about jazz and classical as a pianist. But then, interestingly about my dad, he really got into the 90s alternative music scene, so he was listening to Pearl Jam and Nine Inch Nails and Tool along with us. Like we were like contemporaries, he was very...
So nothing inspired him like 70s, 80s. It was like, no, 90s.
No, he was inspired by everything. I mean,
Yeah.
but it just showed how evolved he was. And my mother was the same way, where she stopped singing and became a DJ, and she was like all about modern music and modern hip hop and all that stuff. And my dad was into hip hop too. Like, he got me into Public Enemy, and my dad was 60 years old going to the library and taking out Tupac CDs from the library. And he's like, hey Doc, you gotta check out this Tupac. It was like, Dad, it's Tupac, all right? Just it's not Tupac. And I don't know. I didn't know you could get
Your dad
CDs.
sounds cool, man. That's awesome.
Yes, he is no longer with us, but
sorry to hear that.
but big influence in my life. Both my
Who was Tupac before? It was like digital. Like what was where did Tupac get his start from? Wasn't it like
Digital Underground?
Digital Underground, yes.
Yeah, but he was
That's big.
By the way, I'm not the biggest Tupac historian, so I don't want to
Well-
say anything out of turn.
And I have all these questions, but I don't know what to ask now.
I'm not the Tupac expert. So you need to go find that guy. I like Juice. Okay, he was really
Juicy
good.
World, yeah.
No, Juice, the movie Juice.
Oh, Juice, yeah.
That's right. That's why it's a classic.
There's
right?
a bunch of classics like Juice, Poetic Justice,
Okay.
Above the Rim.
Okay.
See?
Yep.
I don't know what's going
Another
there.
deep cut, Gridlocked, with him and Tim Roth from Reservoir Dogs, where they're both heroin addicts. Great film.
That's awesome.
Check it out.
Judgment Night.
He's
the
not.
movie.
He's not in there.
Soundtrack.
He's not in there, but that's all right.
Yeah, dude.
I don't know about you, but I have like a superhero origin story of like where it all clicked for me. So like I said, mostly, I grew up in a poor neighborhood, mostly like, urban environment, but there were these two white girls that lived in the neighborhood. And like me and my brother went to stay with our dad for a little bit, and we went back to our old neighborhood where our mom lived, and we hadn't seen them in like, I don't know, 6 months or a year. And in that time, they become total metalheads. Like went in their house and they were like watching MTV, and they had like Sebastian Bach posters and Axl Rose. I didn't know who any of these guys were, but I was watching MTV at their house, and I saw the video for Symphony of Destruction by Megadeth, and it was like everything clicked, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but this is my thing. But I remember somehow acquiring some beat up acoustic guitar. I mean, with the action was like 3 inches off. You could barely play the thing. And I just started playing it, but not really knowing what I was doing. Just kind of like.
Did you take lessons or?
I took maybe 2 lessons.
Yeah.
After my dad saw me taking an interest, and then he was dating a woman at the time named Robin, who's still like a really good family friend. And she, when I graduated from 8th grade into high school, for I think it was my birthday or Christmas, basically kind of lent us her Ibanez Les Paul, and that was kind of like the beginning of riffing and playing.
That's
stuff.
huge that she lent you that. You know what I mean? Like when I was a kid, one of my neighbors let me play on his drum set, and it's just a little thing. But back then I was like, oh, this is what I'm doing now. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like it's like here's the guitar, I'll lend it to you.
At the time,
that changed your world, right?
I didn't realize it was lent to us. I thought we were just being given to it. I think a couple years later when it disappeared,
I'm gonna need it back.
We gonna take that back. You had a good run. Now that time has passed, I'm gonna take my guitar back. Like, okay, we got the most out of it. But no, and then kind of from like, watching MTV, and then
Are you guys in high school? Like where's this middle school? Like high school?
This is like end of middle school going into high school, and kind of like the rabbit hole that was, and I guess to some degree it feels quaint, right? Like the idea that there's this one kind of pathway being MTV that, keep in mind, I wasn't just absorbing rock and metal. I was always also absorbing the pop music of the day and R&B and hip hop. And just everything. I loved everything.
Same way.
But the rock and metal was what I became more and more passionate about. And then I discovered Headbangers Ball, and I discovered a local radio station called WSOU, and it got heavier and more extreme. And then
Did you have friends like these are my friends I listen to this kind of music? These are my friends I listen to metal. Like or
Well, I didn't.
You sound like me, like because I listen to everything, so it's hard to like.
Well, like I said, it's kind of a thing, and this is something, we haven't talked about my podcast yet, but, having a lot of, artists in our scene of color have a very similar story about kind of being this thing of discovering this music, but then you're kind of an outcast in your own kind of environment to some degree. So this thing of like me and my brother went to these advanced classes, so where everyone else would like switch classes every year, I had the same class from 3rd grade to 8th grade, the same group of people. So I didn't really have that many friends. It was like, we had this one friend, John, and before we really got into playing music, we would draw comic books. And then it went from, we're drawing comic books, but we're also listening to Metallica. And then we started playing, and then through John is how we met the other guys from God Forbid. He's like, oh, my cousin plays. You guys should come down. And like when we were like 16 years old, we drove down, a couple miles down the road, went in this basement, met Corey and Byron from God Forbid, and it was like, so it all kind of related. So the friends we did have that listened to metal, even though it was only 2 or 3 people, kind of led me to where I am now.
Dude, I was watching on YouTube, the God Forbid documentary.
Yes.
Rated R for
real.
Real, yes.
That shit's real.
I love that documentary because it's almost a comedy. It's like, is this
It is.
real or serious? Like it's
Well, no, because that's us. We were we're pretty funny dudes. That was.
God forbid Corey, you're like, Corey sang for a minute, and you're like, that didn't work.
Oh, it was funny. Speaking of Tupac, that was the reference. He was sounding like Tupac on the track. It was pretty cool, but it was not meant to be for the sound of the band for the future.
Oh, I love it, man.
But he did his best, and he kind of saved the demo. So
if anybody has not seen it, definitely go on YouTube and check it out.
That's right. It might be a little unpolitically correct by today's standards, but it was very authentic to who the band was at the time.
I love it, man. When was that released? I mean, when did you guys make
2007?
2007? Oh, that's good.
And also,
was that before YouTube? When did YouTube come out?
I mean, I think YouTube was just kind of coming out around that time, but it was, things were a lot more kind of controlled.
How'd you release it?
On a DVD.
Oh,
so
okay.
There was a concert portion of the DVD, and then there was a documentary portion.
That's awesome.
Yeah, except there was an issue with the printing because the DVDs did not work on many DVD players. So thanks Century Media. So remember that one.
Century Media, dude. I always think Century Media was like Stuck Mojo, like back in the days, like that was my band. Did you like Stuck Mojo?
Oh yeah, huge.
Yeah, I'm Atlanta, man. That's like my thing,
Yeah, that was one of the reasons why we wanted to sign to Century Media was because they had such a diverse grouping of bands. Because even before we signed there, I was a fan of Iced Earth. I was a fan of Turmoil. I was a fan of all these, Nevermore and all these European bands. But then they'd have a band like Stuck Mojo who kind of didn't fit in any scene. They seemed really unique, and that was very appealing to us.
How do you get in the doors of Century Media? Like, what's that process like?
It's a simple story. We had just completed the recording of our first LP, God forbid, called Reject the Sickness. And a fantastic producer named Steve Evitz, did the record in like 10 days, recorded and mixed everything. And I think he realized, along with the guy who mastered the record, that we kind of did something pretty special, and we were on a label that our friend had started. Like it wasn't anything, really big. And so he's like, oh, we had mentioned, that we were interested in Century Media. He's like, oh, I'll just send it over, because he had done the Turmoil record and a couple other bands for them. And literally it was like they sent it over, him and Alan, and put in a good word for us. And I got a call. It was like, we want to sign you.
Dude, it's like
that easy.
It's how you know people, right? It's like, it's all networking. It's I was just sending this over here.
Of course, but it's also just as a recording, especially at that time when in the underground, getting a very good recording of extreme music was kind of rare. You needed money, you needed resources, you need to have the right people in proximity. So the fact that it sounded great, and it was something kind of artistically that, you gotta understand, this is before the kind of metalcore as it's known today was in the kind of the popular sphere. So it was untapped. So it was really, at that time, we're talking 1999. This is before Shadows Fall has really kind of gotten out there, before Killswitch, like I think Killswitch's first record came out in 2000, just to give you an idea. So it was really ahead of the curve kind of creatively. So yeah.
That's cool, man. And back then it reminds me of like mailing lists. Every time I'd see a band be like, sign your name for the mailing list. You know what I mean?
At the merch table.
Yeah, at the merch table.
Dude, I would still wish we had those names, man. I'll still be emailing those people right now.
Dude.
I
wonder what those email addresses would be.
Fear
like.
Factory Girl 3 at yahoo.com.
Okay, look at this. Look at this guy, man, right here.
Yeah.
Who took this photo of you, man? This is a great shot.
So that is my buddy Steven Steelman. I don't know when I'm shouting out camera. Should I go here? Should I go, hey, Steven Steelman, or should I go this camera? Because I feel I'm like loving this camera.
Every camera.
Every camera?
No, that's like a triple shout out.
All right, but no, Steven Steelman, he's done a handful of the original Bad Wolves photos, but just a good friend. And we did a bunch of photos for that whole day, and that just turned out to be the one.
I love this podcast, man. Absolutely love it. And there's few podcasts where like I can hear people like talking at the beginning before the interview, and the way you just rant and just talk, and it's awesome, man. And honestly, sometimes I just want to hear you, talk about whatever's going on.
I've heard
that.
You do
such a great job of that, dude.
Thank you. It's a weird thing because I guess in today's day and age, right, in the the time of the vlogger or the TikToker, it's very common for people to feel comfortable about the idea that their opinions are important, that they matter, but I'm a very self-questioning person. So sometimes I'll actually like debate in my mind, like, okay, this is an issue. And usually my monologues, I'll talk about kind of serious issues of the day, maybe if it's a social issue or something that's quasi-political. And often, because I have this kind of like dual mind in my head, is that sometimes I'm almost like having a debate with myself, right? And so if I'm going to say something and have it be definitive, I want to at least be able to stand behind it. So often it's very scary sometimes to put out a hard opinion, because you want to be able to, you want to be able to validate it, right? Like if I say something, I want to go, and someone goes, "Hey, I think you were wrong on that," and you go, "Oh," and then they present evidence. You go, "Oh, maybe I was wrong on that," right? That's a little scary, but it's this thing of like, I've heard that a lot, but I'd almost be fearful to just.
I've heard that a lot. So people come back and reach out and be like, "What you said, I don't agree."
Well, but that's their favorite part of the show.
Yeah.
So, but I think what people relate to is honesty.
Yeah.
Whether it's an opinion they like or not, because I think, especially in today's day and age, where I think we have a tendency to edit ourselves, and I think the people in those spaces, whether it's punditry or vlogs, the people who kind of give you their unvarnished opinion, is attractive to people.
Yes, dude, 100%, man. I love it, man. You do such a great job, man. You're very honest. You remind me of like Rob Flynn's podcast when he just rants at the beginning. I'm like, him and Doc, man, that's like, they should win like some kind of award, man. Like I want to rant, but nobody cares about me.
Well, I feel like he talks a lot about his like family.
He does,
and, like,
man.
the
Do you ever think about doing that? You do that, man.
I do a little bit, but I try and keep it contextual to.
I love how honest you are. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you're like, hey guys, I didn't put an episode this week because whatever. I got this going on.
I think the kind of to your point, what I think you're about to say is, I'll be very honest about if I'm dealing with depression.
Yes,
if I'm dealing with
people relate to that,
like
man.
Dealing with loss, dealing with obviously the pandemic, how crazy that affected all of us mentally, and like just going through that, and I try and keep this balance between, if I'm not feeling great, talking through that and being honest, because I think it makes people not feel alone dealing with their set of issues, whatever they may be. But then I also try and go, okay, don't make that everything that it is. Like, to make sure to keep a good balance between being open, but also go, hey, sometimes remember, this is entertainment.
How do you come up with all these thoughts? Do you listen to podcasts and you're like, I like what that guy does, I like what that guy does, I'm gonna do my own thing, kind of mix? I mean, is this all your own, like?
I mean, I think ultimately, me as a fan of podcasts, the two shows that I guess 3 shows I started listening to was Mark Maron's
Mark Maron, WTF. I love that episode.
Rogan, and then Bill Burr's podcast. Those are the first 3.
Bill Burr can rant forever.
Yeah,
he's
and
like
that's
the king of ranting.
He's good. He's the best. But I'd say mine probably emulates the Mark Maron kind of structure, which I'd say is probably maybe in the, this person from this profession interviews someone of the same profession from kind of an intimate standpoint, is probably the most copied and followed format, and it works, but ultimately, you can have great guests and all of that, but it is, what makes Mark Maron's show unique, what makes Bill Burr's show unique, is those guys, right?
Yeah.
So the show's success or lack thereof is all dependent on my ability to be compelling to whatever degree.
Oh, dude, that's so good.
So, and you kind of, so that's something I think about. But through the years, I'm a fan of podcasts, so I'll listen to other shows that I consider to be really well done, and I'll try and take mental notes of, okay, I like this about this show. Like, I'm a big fan of like Sam Harris and his work, and kind of how thoughtful he is and well-spoken and clear when he's making a point. But in some other shows, like remembering that, again, even when I'm doing an interview, right? it's not the guest's job to make the show great. It's my job to keep it on course. I'm the director, but without ever letting people know that. Like they just have to think it's flowing, but it's ultimately it's entertainment, right?
Exactly.
You got to keep people connected to what's going on, you know? And so you have to be that avatar for the listener. And so as I'm doing an interview, I'm always thinking, if I'm getting bored, then the listener's probably going to get bored.
Okay, yeah. How long did it take you to figure all this out? When you first started your very first podcast, you're like, here I am. This is Doc Coyle. You know,
dude,
like episode 1. Like,
dude, I was nerve-wracked. I remember when I first started, I would have like notes and I'd be like, and questions. And I'm like looking at because in the beginning I was doing everything in person for the most part.
Oh, you were? Okay, like backstage and stuff?
No,
but you have like a mic set up and?
No, I mean, I just, had 2 mics and mic stands and I would do it at my house or I'd go to someone's house. And I'd be like tied to that and trying to like listen to the person, but also thinking of the next question. But the most nerve-wracking thing was monologues. I'd never done that. I'd never just spoken.
And who knew? Like you're like people's favorite. Like,
well,
that's
if
wild,
you say
dude.
so. If you say,
you are, man.
Well, I hope so. But it's funny. The thing I was the most nervous about ultimately became something that I developed a strong aptitude for. And down the line, I've done shows where I'm just doing a monologue for 40 minutes, like Bill Burr. And I think that's something either you can do or you can't do. In terms of making it, I think there's a little bit of a crazy man vibe about it. Think about it.
Yeah,
you're talking to yourself.
How trippy is that?
Like think about like guys who do like or gals for that matter that do like solo radio, right? Like a Rush Limbaugh or a Colin Cowherd or something like that.
Where they're like the Henry Rollins of podcasts.
Well, he is a big hero of mine. But to the point of that. Being a musician or a rocker and kind of showing that there's a lot more to that role than just being a player. That if you do have something broader to say, if you are, someone who actually thinks a lot and has something to say, then you don't just have to be tied to that role. That you can expand in who you are. And that for me, it started even before podcasting. I was writing, for Metal Sucks and my own website and VH1.com and things like that. But believe it or not, one of the reasons why I started the podcast was, at the time when I was working on music and doing different things and writing, but also to go, if music doesn't work out, maybe I could be a DJ or something. Like just having different, I think it's important to have different skill sets because if you just focus on music and that's all you do and things don't work out, you're kind of go, next thing you know, I have a 10-year gap in my resume and no skills to speak of. So it's about kind of like developing broadcasting skills. And
you're bartending at the same time, right?
I was bartending from about 2010 to 2018, like being the year when, and so pretty much when Bad Wolf started touring, I haven't, bartended since.
Do you forget like all the drinks, like when you're going back and forth, like, or is it just something like riding a bike? You go off and on, like
I haven't done it so long.
I can do any drink you want.
No, well,
you're a bartender.
Luckily, so the places I worked at Duff's Bar in Brooklyn, a metal bar. Shout out Jimmy Duff, and. It's a beers and shots bar. I mean, every now and again you get someone to ask you for some, like a
White Claw?
Cosmo or something. I can make a White Claw.
Can you?
I can make it.
Can you pour it straight up?
I mean, if you want some ice, put a maraschino cherry in that bitch. but no. So there wasn't really, the most complex thing you make is like a margarita or something like that. Yeah. And then when I moved to LA. I was mainly doing events, festivals, and things like that. So, it's all about speed and all that. It's not necessarily about making fancy stuff. I never worked in one of those places.
You're doing all this like with God forbid, like balancing that?
No. So I started bartending in 2010, basically because God forbid was kind of the downswing, and I was like, I need to make some money. Yeah. And luckily Jimmy gave me a job over there. And then the band started doing stuff around 2012. We did about 6 months of touring and the band broke up. And and pretty much, I was just trying to figure out ways to survive. And in a lot of ways, this kind of relates to the podcast because that emanated, the concept of the X-Man was like, okay, you've been doing this thing for 10 years. And I literally got saying, I left high school, went to college for one semester, pretty much failed out.
Where'd you go?
I went to, where did I go to college?
The school you said failed out.
William Patterson. That's so funny.
Harvard,
That's how forgettable it was. No, I'm not even joking. And then, but all I cared about was the band. I left school, focused on the band, and next thing you know, within a year of that, got a record deal. Within a year of that, I'm on the road full time.
Record deal. That's amazing.
So, but what I'm saying, but broke as all hell, but just all of a sudden I'm doing this thing that I always say, like, me having a career in music, it never seemed like a reasonable thing to even want. So it just kind of just happened, right? So from age 19 to 30, that's all I'm doing. And next thing you look up and you go, all right, I'm 30, I'm single, all these people that I grew up with, they're getting married or they're having children, they're buying houses. And you're like, who the hell am I? What am I doing? What do I want? And so that was like a really formative time for me, of figuring out what the hell am I doing? So that was kind of like the jumping off point for the podcast of going, okay, let me talk to other artists or professionals or whatever who've gone through stuff and who've had situations end, and they have to figure out what the hell am I doing with my life, especially when you get to that, late 20s into your 30s and 40s. That's all right. It happens. You, man. It's all right. It's all right. You know what? I'm not gonna spill mine.
Hey, one more time.
Actually, this is apple juice. Don't listen to him.
That is true.
All right, don't drink, kids.
Martinelli's.
What's that?
Martinelli's apple juice.
Yeah, that's right. Great. It's great. But no, just like, and especially after doing the show for all these years, and hearing that what I went through, it turns out so many artists went through that, right? Like whether it's like Rich Ward, right, from Suck Mojo, and hearing his story, and you go, man, that's like very similar to my story. Like where Stuck Mojo and me with God Forbid, it's like that's your whole world, your whole life, and all of a sudden you're not doing that, and you look up, and then you get another opportunity, and you go, oh no, there's other things.
Yeah.
It's not, even though that's your kind of your passion, especially like that, your first band that has some success and you put your heart and soul into, there's always going to be something special about that.
Dude, so many people can relate to this, like outside of music world. Like this is for everybody, you know what I mean? You do something for so long and you're like, I have this other thing I want to do.
Well, I think there's, and like I said, what I'm saying is not unique. It's not something that I've invented. Well, if you say so. But but this
really shine the light. Yeah.
But this idea of like literally you're gonna fail in life.
Yeah.
Invariably, you're gonna fail at something. And it's just how you like being okay with that to go, this is part of the process.
Who's dropping this wisdom on you? You just know this, or like do you have
like
a mentor?
I mean, I think I do, have, people like Rob Flynn, people like, Rob Trujillo are people that I look up to and luckily have their ear and when I need advice or try and follow, just, any good advice that I can get. But honestly, from doing the show and having, these conversations, talking to Doug Pinnick from King's X, who's 70 years old, who was literally, playing shows when there's segregation, right? Talking to Dee Snider, and you go, and Dee Snider, one of the most important figures in rock ever, who's telling you that he was, broke and like doing telemarketing.
Yeah.
Right? So how bad can you feel about yourself? It's like, I didn't have the #1 record and was on, the one of the biggest bands in the world, and then had to feed my kids doing that. So it's a common thing, but I think it's thematic to what it's like to be an artist, but also an entrepreneur, right? Because the thing that both those have in common is risk, right? Is, okay, I'm not gonna go to this regular job and know I got my paycheck coming every 2 weeks.
Yes.
It's going, I'm jumping in, and if this doesn't work, I'm on my ass. And it doesn't mean you don't work a side job, you don't have side hustles. It's not that, but it's it is inherently risky, but high risk, high reward, right?
Yeah, man.
So.
Oh, that's amazing, dude. I don't want to make the whole this whole episode about your podcast, but that's how I discovered you. Actually,
well,
thank
that?
You.
Cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, thank you.
And have you this album right here, Dear Monsters?
That's right.
This is your latest one. I'm kind of giving you it's out of order, and I don't try to make it in order anymore. But what an amazing record,
Thank
DL, man.
He good.
You know what? You guys had how many singers do you have show up? Didn't you? It was like a couple of them, but DL was in the mix.
Well, I mean, ironically enough, DL sent us a recording of him doing a Bad Wolf song within 24 hours of us not having a singer. And it was amazing. And it was like...
And he was the first one, right?
Yeah, that's what
so
I'm saying.
So he set the bar. You're like, whoa, this guy...
Absolutely. But then we still went through an exhaustive search.
Yeah. Can you tell, you don't have to, but like, how was the incentive? Like, how many people, was there like a final 5 people and DL somewhere in the mix?
No, it was, I would say, because we didn't make it public in terms of going, hey, if you want to be the singer Bad Wolf, send us your stuff. We didn't want to do that. We didn't want like a cattle call type situation. So we essentially just used our own contacts, or if someone kind of, got in touch with us through whatever means, and we kept it pretty close on that level. And I'd say about 20 people sent in recordings, which is what we wanted. We were like, hey, here's some instrumentals, record yourself over these 3 songs or whatever. And then based on that, and we had some really great people who sounded awesome, but it just didn't sound like in the vein of the band. It felt just a different vibe. But out of that, we had 6 people come in a room and jam with us. And then out of those 6, 3 we brought back to the studio to sing on new songs.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. And then, and then DL was the man.
How do you tell the other guys? You're like, I appreciate you coming back. This sounds like some kind of Monster Metallica
stuff. Well,
stuff,
funny thing is, I'm the one who called them.
Oh, you did? You're the business guy.
Not that I was the business guy, but with these 2 other people, I was the one that kind of was the contact and kind of brought them into the environment. And it's a tough talk, but I say both people who didn't also make it are super talented and great, and I still, would love to work with in other capacity or help them get other gigs, because it's like, one thing you learn from a process like this is there's a lot of talent out there.
Yeah, right.
And even if doesn't necessarily mean they're the right fit for the band at that time, or that I don't know. I think in any situations, all of a sudden, it's like, now there's a lot more people on my radar that you might work with in a different capacity.
Yeah, man. So, Dear Monsters, and the first song with DH, what was the first single? Actually, I got the first single right here. Tomorrow Never Comes. That's your first single, isn't it?
It's the second single. Lifeline is the first single.
Dude, that song was massive, dude.
Oh, thank you.
How do you pick Lifeline of all the songs, man? The album is great, by the way.
I think with Lifeline, it's definitely I wanted it to be the first single, which was, we wanted, because of how the kind of release was going to be, we wanted the first song that came out to be the song that was going to be like the actual single goes to radio. Usually what we would do for the first 2 records is put out a heavier song, as like, just, here's the 6th song, and then we'll put out kind of a little bit more of an accessible track to go to radio. But with this time, we kind of wanted to kill all the birds with that one stone.
Yeah.
And so this one was, like I said, a bit heavier, if a lot more heavier than a lot of our other songs that have gone to radio, but still kind of, it was like right in that middle ground of being super catchy, but heavy enough to hopefully kind of grab everyone. And we thought it was a great introduction for DL. I mean, ultimately, who knows with these things? Because you're like, I have an opinion. Someone at the label.
That's what I was asking with the label. Are they like, you should do this song?
Dude,
and then the ballad song comes third, right?
You'd be amazed at the debates about who has this opinion and who has that opinion. And a lot of it, especially with a record like this, where I feel like you could have 8, 9 songs that could be singles. And it's like, it's not easy. So
but
it is.
Do you guys pick the final single, or do they do, or is it like
ultimately, I think contractually, I think the label has the final say.
Oh, really?
I believe so, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But at the end of the day, you, as the band, you're kind of too close to it. You know, so it's hard. Like I always say, the best way to kind of gauge like the song that should be like a single is like play it for people who are not musicians.
Yeah.
But not your your girlfriend, or even though that's like a good gauge, but there might be some bias there. You want people that are the least biased, that don't care about you or nothing, and you just
Okay, like yes men. Surround yourself by yes men. Like,
well, the opposite of that. You want no yes men.
That's what I mean. You
want
want opposite,
regular
like,
people, and kind of like play it.
that sounds like my wife. This sucks. This stinks.
But just play it and like see what gets a pop.
Yeah, right.
And
how do you do that, man? Just ask your close buddies.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, with this time around, I don't know if I personally did that much. Even though I did show it to a handful of people, but I don't know. That was just the predominant feeling from the band. There were some different opinions from like management and label, but ultimately that was decided upon. And the thing is, you make those decisions and you stick with the decision, and hopefully it all works out.
The songs sound great, man. Were the songs come together easily, or did you like? You don't have like, did you have all these ideas working up to this album, or did you like, it was like a writer's block? Writer's block.
Keep in mind, I'm not the primary songwriter in the band, so a lot of this stuff I can't necessarily say.
Who's the primary songwriter?
John, our drummer, who's also
that's amazing. The drummer's the primary song.
He's a super talented guy.
That's awesome, dude.
And also keep in mind with this record, there was essentially, before we split up, there was like basically a record that already existed, that was almost about to be finished.
With Tommy?
Yeah, and then we split, and then there was a bunch of those songs we didn't want to use. And then a lot of the new songs we kind of revamped or redesigned, and then we wrote a bunch of other stuff. And and we also, like I said, we worked with some outside songwriters and stuff, and some stuff was submitted. So it's this album is a really kind of amalgamation and Frankenstein of all that stuff.
Yeah, man.
But by the end of it, I mean, John probably had, I don't know, a dozen instrumentals or even more that didn't make the record. There's a couple songs I wrote that didn't make the record. There's B-sides. I mean, so at no point was our problem not having enough material.
Yeah.
Our only problem was, essentially, we asked DL to join the band. He was in the studio, 3 days later, and we had it locked in. I think we had 12 days in the studio.
Yeah.
He banged everything out. We kind of thought we were done. We're like, oh my God, we did it. This is great. And then the label wanted something else and some kind of different thing. So we kind of went back to work. And so it was less about not having enough material and just being kind of under the gun of time, of going, because the label wanted the album to be out by X amount of time. And they can't design a release schedule until you turn in your final masters. Until it's done. And that's for production schedules and DSPs and things like this. And especially, even with our record, which makes it even a little worse, is, vinyl now you need 8 to 12 months advance notice. So our vinyl like just showed up, a month ago.
We're going back to Rob Flynn. He talks about that too. It just like it takes forever.
Yeah, but it behooves any band or artist to have that all aligned so that when the album comes out, the vinyl and all the physical comes out, because that helps your sales. And obviously people, they get the product when they expect to, and they don't have to wait 6 months. So it's definitely it's a much more congruent operation, but you have to have that leeway time. And for us, there was kind of an imperative to want to get a record out as soon as possible.
Who picks out like the artwork, and like you got these vinyls with 5 different covers and color? Is that you guys, the record company, or like, I think we should do this vinyl, white with red, and is that you, a creative? Is that you guys, or? So,
well, keep in mind with our band, there's been an evolution with that, because there's been different personnel and people kind of with more control, and that's something I haven't really had much of a say in until now. And this time, John decided to work with a friend of his, and essentially, sent a bunch of mock-ups and kind of different ideas. And the thing that was cool about this cover, which I really like, because I love how simple and clean it is, it really was a kind of group effort of like, let's try that. I like that. Okay, that's our starting point. And what about this font? Or okay, with this color, and really, even though it seems so simple, like it that should be simple, there was a dozen versions of different ways that could have been. And it really was a team effort. And sometimes it's
you
just
guys that like vote on it. You're like,
Yeah, well, but it wasn't as much voting. It was more like, all right, this guy brings this idea, and when we go, oh, that's cool. This guy brings this idea, and then so it's kind of this wisdom in crowds kind of idea
cool.
that everyone's kind of chipping in and giving their input, and then ultimately it gets kind of sculpted until it gets to be the thing that everyone's happy with. So,
dude, this song right here, man, it's cool. Einstein Kills, man. Look at this.
Spencer, very handsome.
Spencer.
I mean, it's.
How is Spencer? Is he cool?
He is the best. I love Spencer.
Do you think he'll be on the show?
You know what?
You're like
I think we can make it happen. All right.
Really?
I think we can. No, he's
Spencer. Be on the show.
He is the coolest dude and a great singer and such a brilliant artist. I love him so much.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just wish it was just his face, because I feel like we'd sell more copies if it just his handsome face was there.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to. He does very well. The ladies love him. So
you're this. Hold on a sec. I'm sorry. This face is pretty sexy too, though. Sexy. Look at right there. Look at that.
That's Photoshop. All right?
That should have been the album cover. Bad Wolves.
That's looks in Photoshop.
Yeah.
It's that studio trickery right there. All right. You seeing it right here. You see this? His face just like sliding off like yogurt. All right. It's not sexy.
That's good, man. Bad Wolves, man. This zombie song.
Yeah. Pretty big, huh?
Who knew, man? Whose idea was it to do Zombie in the first place? The
Tommy.
cover song.
That's yeah. I take no credit. I didn't play on it. I really had nothing to do with it except being like the live guitar player.
You were in the video.
I was in the video, and I looked okay in the video, but not as good as Ava. But no, listen, I can take very little credit for outside of just being in the band and going out and doing. I mean, when that thing hit, I had to get on a plane and go to Europe and be, playing acoustic guitar on like radio stations in Germany and TV stations all over the world, like immediately.
Well, before that, man, you were in the video, dude. In the video, like, how many bands cover a song, and how many bands cover a song and do the video exactly like the old school video? I mean,
well, it's not exactly.
You got the premise, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. Well, it's a visual nod to that.
It's amazing, dude.
And again, by the way,
that's rare.
I can take no credit. Wayne Isham directed that, and listen, I've done a million videos. Shooting videos is usually a lot of work. It sucks. Mm-hmm. I think you can be connected to the idea of what you're trying to get across, but usually being in a metal band, you go there and you have like someone yelling at you to like headbang and like break your back so that you can, so they can like cut everything out you do, and they use like 15 seconds of you breaking your back. This video, it was all one day, pretty much one shot, and there was just a vibe on the set, and for me, this is right after she passed away. And
that's so wild, man. So you guys are recording the song, and she's gonna be on the song with you.
Yeah, but keep in mind, I didn't know that at the time.
Oh yeah, you're not recording.
I had heard she was going to do it, but at the same time, you hear all kinds of things that might happen. Mm-hmm. So I found out just kind of when the general public found out, but it was a very like confused feeling, because you're having a new band and you want your band to do well.
Yep.
And the single is doing really well, but it's also connected to this really incredible, legendary human being.
Yeah, man, Dolores from Cranberries.
Her death. And so, that I just tried to keep, I think that energy of understanding that was very like present on the set of like, this is not something to joke about. This is not something to like celebrate about. You know what I'm saying? Like
I love it. In the beginning of the video, don't you guys have a disclaimer like proceeds are going to this, whatever charity or that was really cool, man.
Yeah. Again, like I said, I showed up and I shot it, and that was all handled
in one day. Yeah.
Yeah, but there was something magical about that song and that video and everything that kind of connected with that. And that's just, it's going to be there forever. And it's kind of something that, as a band, you know, it was interesting. So I talked to some people and they're like, oh, so are you guys going to play Zombie now? And I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
They're like, but don't you think it's kind of weird? I'm like, no, we're Bad Wolves. That's what the song Bad Wolves is known for. Maybe someday we'll, like, hey, maybe we'll take a break from it or put it down or play it acoustic or do something a little different. But I thought it was very important, and that was bared out on this last tour, that it's still extremely powerful moment in the set. It's still like, if you go on like our Instagram, you see what we're being tagged on. That's the song in the set that, people generally know the band from. And it's like, and there's always that kind of, dual-sided coin about having a hit that's so kind of bigger than anything else you've done.
Yeah.
That it's like it's a gift and a curse, right? Because it's good to be known for something, but it can also, in the worst case scenarios, it can kind of overshadow everything you've done and you've done, and it can work against you. So it's I think there's this delicate balance of owning it, but also trying to put across the idea that there's a lot more to the band than that, and you also can't rest on previous accomplishments. It's really, any band or artist you're only as good as your last record, your last song, your last show. So you have to really keep focused on that.
Did you guys have a lot of meetings about that? Like get-togethers, just what you told me, like internally, was the band on the same page?
I mean, I'll be honest, there was a lot. I think the success of that moment and everything around that launched this band, definitely brought the worst out of some people. And it taught me a very unique lesson, because ultimately, most people will never be able to experience having kind of a global monumental hit song. I mean, obviously, if you're in like, I don't know, you're Ariana Grande or something, you have a global hit every year, and it's not that big of a deal, or maybe it is, but being a part of that when you've never had anything like that.
Yeah, dude, that's insane.
It is very revealing of character.
Yeah.
Success is very revealing of character. And that's kind of where I'll kind of leave. I'll leave it at that. But I'm of the mind, when things are going well and there's opportunities, it's something to that should bring people together.
Yeah.
But it's like, but I've, one thing, especially doing the show and speaking to a lot of bands where there's difficulty in the band. Usually those things start when they start making money.
Yeah, man. How do you stay grounded? You're like,
how am I grounded?
No. In general, man. Like, you guys, we got the enormous song, man.
Well, but it wasn't. I'm trying to think about how much to actually reveal here, because it was like, hey, here's a lottery ticket, but to claim the money, you have to like climb through lava and get to the top of this mountain, and then you got to fight a dragon, and then you have to, and then jump in this mud pit, like it. And it's gonna take 3 years, right? From the outside looking in, it always looks like it's an overnight success, but there was, that wasn't necessarily the case. We still had to go out and grind and work and build a business and go out there. And like I said, it is a double-sided coin, because, you have this big thing. Now the question is, hey, can you live up to it?
Yeah.
Can you repeat it?
What's next?
And if that's the bar, right, is this one thing, and you don't meet that, are you a failure? Well, it's very complicated. And you have some people who go, oh, well, you're just a one-hit wonder. You're this or you're that. So you have to navigate that ultimately it's an advantage, right? They say it's better to be known for something than nothing, right? It's an advantage, but, given all that we've gone through, with member changes and new records and surviving a pandemic and all that stuff, ultimately, that's the past. It's just really about what you're doing now. And it's great to have that in the catalog and something that's, like I said, we're always going to be remembered for that. And the way people connect to that, it's palpable, it's powerful, and that's kind of never really going to go away, I think. Like sometimes having that one thing, because it's a heavy song, right?
Yeah, and the circumstances regarding that song is huge too. I mean, the way Dolores passed. I mean, that's a huge thing. People won't forget, man. It's in history.
Yeah, and that's something I always try and take seriously and never lose sight of.
Oh, man, I got so many questions here. Look. All right, well, look, your second album, how do you follow up Zombie, man? You got Nation, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, you have a lady with her underboobs out.
Okay,
That's
who
how you
is
follow
this
it.
lady?
I don't know.
Did you ever see this lady? It's just like, that's the album cover right here.
Yeah, I'd have anything to do with
I want to
that
have her on
album
the
cover.
show.
I'm sure you would.
But, yeah.
Should you bring her face or just her kind of disembodied torso?
The family would love it, too. Yeah. Yeah, just put a bag over your head and walk around the house.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, I like the colors of their. There's no acronym. There's no words for that.
Okay, there isn't?
No.
Well, what's up with that?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No, I don't think you were listening earlier. I told you I didn't have a lot of control over stuff for a long period of time. So I was just like a passenger in the back of the bus, just waiting to get there. So a lot of these questions, I might not have answers for you. So what happened with this? I'm like, man, I don't know. They didn't ask me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a great album, man. I was listening to it today, man. That's good.
It's pretty
I'm
good.
like, I was
It's
listening
pretty
to
good.
it today, yeah.
Pretty good. It's got some good tunes on
Yeah,
there.
you guys toured a lot on this record?
No, we did 2 tours of Five Finger Death Punch and the pandemic happened. We had to go home.
Oh, this is right before the pandemic,
right.
yes.
That's right. Disappointing because there was a lot of
Five
songs.
Finger Death Punch, you guys were on a big stage, man. That's huge.
Yeah. Well, Zoltan was managing the band for the first 2 records, and great guy, taught us so much, did so much for the band. All those guys, have been so supportive, through everything we've been through, and the fact that they brought us on tour like 4 times, and their audience embraced us wholeheartedly. So we owe a great deal of our career to Five Finger Death Punch.
That's cool.
Yeah.
There's a couple questions I have.
Shout out to Ivan. Shout out to Chris.
Ivan, yeah.
Love you guys.
I was supposed to have Ivan on the show, I think. Or not
Charlie.
Ivan, yeah.
Andy.
Who's the bass player of Five Finger Death Punch?
Chris Coyle.
Chris Coyle. I was supposed to have him on the show, man. He's cool, man.
Hopefully
Got that
we'll do it.
long, okay, can you listen to yourself on record, man? When you go back and listen to
Hell
it,
yeah.
You can't. You're like, this is good. This is
Yes.
bad.
I would hope you like what you do.
No. I like it, but can you like it? Like
Yeah.
when you hear your own stuff, and on
The
your
artists are, listen, you have 2 kinds of artists, right? You have like the Max Cavalera kind of artist who like records stuff, and he just moves on, right? He's like a shark. He just keeps moving. He doesn't look backwards. He just kind of, and he doesn't go back. And then you have like the Kanye type of artist who like when you go to Kanye's house, Kanye's listening to Kanye, right? On 50. He's like, he's looking at you, see if you're feeling it, and I for what I've noticed, most artists are more like Kanye artists. We tend to listen to our own music.
So if you're single,
we're pretty narcissistic.
You're single, and a girl comes by, you're like, listen to the Nation. It don't sound, you play your own shit for?
Well, between you and me, I don't listen to the first 2 records that much.
You don't? Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, maybe instrumentally I'll check them out, but I try and but there's still a lot of great music.
My next question though, I forgot to ask you when you're doing your podcast. Do you listen to your interviews?
I listen to every interview I do.
Okay. Do you listen to it more than once?
No, rarely.
So you listen to once and you're kind of like critiquing. You're like, I should have done this. I should have done that.
Well, yeah. Well, there's that part of it which I think is really important. It's really important to hear. Well, because there's so many things you don't realize you're saying. You don't realizing that you said like 5,000 times. You said
same, man.
8,000 times. So that's really important. It's important to see, I was talking over my guest here. I was not being an active listener.
Yeah.
I was.
Isn't that crazy, man? And then during the interview, do you think about that? You're like, yep, I just interrupted this guy. Right? You know what I mean? I think these thoughts are running through my head when I'm doing this.
I think often you're not thinking about it, or else you probably wouldn't do it. Right?
Yeah.
If
True.
So it's trying to kind of, but you have to listen to yourself. I remember I interviewed Dave Ellison from Megadeth, and I was on Shiprocked, and I'd asked him about doing the podcast. I was set up so I could get as many interviews on the boat as I could, and he's like, I'll let you know. And he hit me up at like 1 a.m. And I was tore up, right? But I was like, I'm not turning down a Dave Ellefson interview.
I want to go back and hear this.
So and I swear to God, for the first like 25 minutes, I am just rambling and speed talking and not getting. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, Doc. But
Is this still on?
yeah,
Can people hear it?
yeah.
Yes.
But eventually I settled down. But it's important to listen to yourself and see when you're not your best and what you can learn from. And I think it's like anything. The more interviews I'm doing, right? If I'm doing 2 interviews a week, sometimes 3 interviews, I get into a rhythm. I get into a flow. But if I take 2 months off, I'm not gonna be very sharp. So that's really important. But I also listen to my shows too because I also do the editing. And it's
You
like,
do? Oh, so you're
so if there's, audio blips or the guy had to use the bathroom, I cut that up so it's seamless for the listener.
I keep talking about this podcast because I love your podcast. It's one of my favorite. And I keep touching your arm, by the way. That's
right.
like 20,000 times.
It's a great arm.
Your arm's great.
Right?
Your muscles are so
That's
big,
going
man.
in the. So,
Look at this, man. We got to talk a couple. These are all random props. I always do random.
they
Look at these
do
guys.
make sense though. They're not
Do they?
random.
You know what? That's right. They do make sense.
I mean, they're kind of out of order.
I
like
was
you said.
making sense before I knew I was making sense.
It's all right.
But when's the reunion show?
We're playing September. I can't reveal the date yet because that's still a mystery. But we're playing in September on the Blue Ridge Rock Festival in Virginia.
That's cool, man. And you were saying, I think I heard you saying that you don't even you just know these songs by the back of your, you play them so many times that you don't even have to rehearse them, right?
I mean,
do you guys get in a room and
No, we're gonna rehearse. I leave next week. I'm flying back to Jersey to rehearse.
Oh, that's tight.
But I mean that I know them pretty well. Like I went over the songs last week and I was like, damn, I'm pretty tight on these. Except actually War of Attrition is a song. I was like, I didn't get a chance to go over that. So I have to go through War of Attrition. That one might
of all the songs, that's the one. Yeah.
Well, it's one, dude, that song's no joke, all right? You gotta bring your A game right hand for that.
Yeah, man.
All right.
Yeah, that's cool. More God forbid. Look at this.
There you go. Determination. That's the shitty European album cover. I mean, I guess to some people that's cool because metalheads like skulls.
Yes.
Essentially, we had a different cover for the U.S. Don Clark did it, and very kind of like postmodern, just very cool, like non-traditional metal album cover that we all liked, and the European office was like. We do not understand this. In Germany, you must let them know it is heavy metal. So they do something else, and they made that one. But actually there's a really cool T-shirt design, and I forget who did the T-shirt design. I don't know if it was Don or someone else, where they basically took the U.S. cover and this cover and made a great T-shirt design, and that was really badass. So
Do you have the shirt?
I don't, but Mark Morton from Lamb of God wears it all the time. It's his long sleeve.
Oh, yeah.
He's basically made that shirt famous. It's Mark Morton famous.
Mark Morton famous, yeah.
That's
dude.
right.
Lamb of God rules, man.
Yes, they do.
That's awesome, dude.
This is indisputed.
We've already talked about that. Hold on, I want to get to the main wedding band.
There you go.
Dude.
That's a nice picture.
Yeah, man. That's
It's a
cool.
nice print.
How in the world did wedding band happen?
It's kind of a long story.
This is a
Do you wanna
super
hear it?
group of all super groups.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So do you want to hear the full story?
I want to hear the members first. We got,
Okay.
Whitfield Crane.
Okay,
Kirk Hammett. Yeah.
So we have Kirk Hammett from Metallica, Whitfield Crane of Ugly Kid Joe, and also Robert Trujillo of Metallica. But this right here, we have Joey Castillo
from Danzig, right?
Was he played in Danzig? Probably.
I
But
don't know,
he's
man. I'm
he's
just throwing it
in
out there.
what's that band he's in right now? The Bronx. He plays with the Bronx right now, but he's been in Queens of Stone Age. He's been in a
Awesome.
ton of great bands. But the actual drummer of the band, the regular drummer, is John Theodore, who plays in Queens of Stone Age currently. He's touring with Bright Eyes right now. And then now Mark Asagueda of Death Angel has come into the band as a second vocalist now. So they're
With Whitford, they switched?
yeah, they kind of mix it up because the band does a bunch of funk tunes, and I think Mark is he kind of vibes that a little better, and then some songs they'll sing together. It's really great. But anyway, how did I get?
Yes, dude, this is massive.
So I know the Metallica guys because I filled in for Lamb of God back in 2009 on the tours with Metallica. So I got to meet them. So they know who I am. moved to LA in 2014, and I was jamming with this cover band called Rebel Noise Group. My drummer at the time was Ken Schalk, who's from Candiria and Fuel, amazing drummer. He was filling in for Rob's other band, Mass Mental, who's doing a show at the Whiskey. It's a band with 2 bass players, him and this guy, Armand Cebalecho. This 3-song medley they do in the set is Black Sabbath, and you need a guitar player. So they had thrown some names around. Somehow my name came up. Ken goes, hey, would you want to, do this thing? I had to go down to the rehearsal and just I kind of try out. I had to play the songs. They're like, all right, you're cool. So, but I did some jamming actually when I was there. I just kind of I wasn't nervous. I was just I'm a musician is what I do. So I was kind of jamming with them and playing with them. Did the show. It went well. Like I said, Ozzy was there and Stuart Copeland from the Police. And
That's amazing.
It was amazing, yeah.
Ozzy.
And Duff McKagan was there. I'm sure some other people. But anyway, do the show. It was the first gig I did in LA since I moved there. So it's kind of like a big deal for me. And next day, Rob calls me. He's just like, man, you did a great job. I love your attitude. I love the way you play. He's like, you're going to do great here.
How'd that make you feel, man? You're like, oh my God.
It made me feel great. Well, you all, I think anytime anyone does a job of any kind, you want or
the
needs
respect of the people like you grew up.
Respect, but some validation that you, because a lot of people tell you, good job, but you don't know if they're being authentic.
Man.
So he didn't have to do that.
Okay. That's so good.
He kept calling me to do rehearsals for because there was another guitar player who would do some stuff with them and do some shows. So I was almost like a fill-in for that guy. But then there was a show where the kind of a reduced version of the band where I just played guitar. I was the only, so the other bass player wasn't there. So it was just me and Rob and Brooks Wackerman, who was the drummer of that band, and Whit. So we did this show, and that was great. And then pretty much I got busy with Bad Wolves. Metallica got busy on the last record. So they were touring a lot. We were all busy. And then I heard about the wedding band thing on Blabbermouth. I was like, oh man, that's cool. It's kind of like a version of the Mass Mental band. I was like, oh man, that's really cool. That show's happening. And then a week later, I get an email from Rob. He's like, hey, could you fill in for Kirk at this rehearsal? And he sent me the set list. It was a bunch of the songs we had already done with Mass Mental. And I was like, but it was still a lot of material. But it happened to be a time when I was free from touring. So I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And I cram these songs. I try, because I just want to go to rehearsal and I just want Rob to be happy.
Are these songs all cover songs or like?
Yeah, it's like Judas Priest and AC/DC and Motorhead, but then a ton of these.
Are these easy songs to learn for you?
Some of them, but Sabbath stuff. They're complex and there's a lot going on, and then a lot of these funk songs, which, I'm learning horn parts, or I have to it's not as easy as just oh, here's the riff and here's the thing. It's just it's a little bit dense, and there's also a stylistic component to it. And a kind of being able to improvise and
this is a secret, right? This is all on the low. You can't tell nobody. Is it, or is this public knowledge?
I mean, there would be really no reason for it to be public knowledge because he's just asked me to do it.
Oh yeah, nothing's set in stone.
Yeah, I'm just a fill-in for rehearsal.
Yeah.
Do the rehearsal, and it goes well, and I'm almost relieved because man, it sounded good. I feel like I did my job, and I'm wrapping up, putting my cables away, and Rob's like, man, it's like, you sounded really great, man. He's like, man, I think we'd like to have you on this gig. And this is the gig where they were playing in Toronto. And I was getting ready to leave for this tour to go to Texas to meet up with Papa Roach. And, and then he goes, let me make some calls. And he goes, let me check it out. Let me see with the budget. And he, makes some calls. 20 minutes later, comes back, he goes, yeah, we just don't really have the money to bring you in. And then during this 20 minutes, now I got all hyped up. Yeah, I was thinking, oh, maybe I can do this. And I go, well, what if I fly myself there? And he goes, all right. I was like, I'll call you in a couple hours. He calls me in a couple hours. I'm at home. He goes, if you can fly yourself there, you can do the gig. So that's this gig. So I ended up taking a red eye, flying in. We did 1 day of a loose rehearsal, Did the gig, and then I flew to Texas and started the tour, and then right before the pandemic, they invited me out to do another gig, but this time it was like 5 rehearsals in LA, 5 rehearsals in South Carolina. We had like a horn section, we had keyboard player. It was like this whole big thing. We got suits. It was this whole crazy thing, and then so that was the last gig I did before the pandemic, and then the first gig I did after the pandemic, or whatever kind of shows started opening up again, was in San Francisco after the Metallica 40th anniversary. Same, the band got even bigger, and we had and it was great. It was badass.
Didn't you guys play right afterwards?
Yeah, we played about 1 a.m.
Yeah, you weren't even at the Metallica show, right?
No, I couldn't go because
you were setting up at the other place.
Well, we had to set up, but it was basically for them to get from the I forget the name of the venue where the Golden State Warriors play. Yeah. They had to get a police escort because of traffic and everything. So that would not have been provided for us. So just to be able to make sure everyone was in place, we couldn't go to the show. But anyway, so that was the last show, and then we're playing next month in May. We're playing after they do the Bottle Rock Fest. We're doing another show.
That's amazing.
So for whatever it's worth, I'm in the band for now. Unless the gig happens that I'm not available for, but it's just a great opportunity, and it's a different style of music that I'm used to playing, so I look at it as a great learning experience, and also just I remember when I got there for that, and you're just like you're around these guys who have so much history and experience and knowledge and wisdom, half the time I'm just keep my mouth shut and I'm listening because I just want to, absorb kind of that energy and just be that fly on the wall and kind of just, because I'm a bit younger than a lot of those guys. So it's, but I feel like I fit in because I'm old school in a lot of my kind of instincts.
Yeah. Do you ever think like, man, when I was a kid, if I ever knew I was going to be in a band with Kirk Hammett, you know what I mean? Like, it just seems
again. I never dared to dream those things because they were never. Yeah. That was never something I thought one could aspire to. So it's like, I don't know. So a lot of people they go, man, you freak you out. I'm like, no, because I mean,
you can't let it freak you out, right? You can't think too much about it, right?
No, well, no, because one, I think it's like we're musicians. Like this is what we do. We play.
That's what you do. You're professional.
You play music, and and that's what you do. You show up and you do a good job.
Dude, you're so humble though. Like, I'm telling you, man.
I'm not good enough to not be humble. Like, I don't, every time in life I start feeling myself and get cocky, life kicks me in the face.
Is that keeps you grounded?
Yeah, because it's like, you think you're a big deal, splat, So I don't know these people that are cocky and can get away with it, but I'm jealous of them. But it's never really worked for me. And also like the work never stops. To me, to have any sense of like I'm the man or this is like when you're at a place where literally no one can take away anything and you can just go to your castle on the mountain and kind of. But I'm in no position to do that. The work never stops. Like there's always. I feel like, if anything, I'm more energized now more than ever to take advantage of opportunities and just grind and put everything in because you only get these certain, these kind of horizons of where opportunities can exist. And if you give 100% during that time, it'll pay dividends down the road. And really, especially like looking with what's happening with Bad Wolves and us doing this Papa Roach tour and really kind of codifying ourselves as a live band and putting a lot of people at ease about what the band's gonna be. And even ourselves, like going, okay, this is actually really badass. And it opens up all these opportunities. And so it's just about building on wins.
Yeah, man.
But it's small, incremental. It's every day. It's just doing the right things every day and building good habits. There's none of this like, I think some way, it's like kind of going back to the zombie thing about, if we just hit this grand slam, everything works. And sometimes that happens, but you can't rely on that.
Yeah.
You can only focus on having a good culture, all right, and you're amongst the band and the business that surrounds that, having good habits in terms of being diligent about perfecting your craft, which is something that like it's nip and tuck every day. Like I look at Papa Roach and you see how good they are. Like they're incredible.
Yeah, man,
But
consistently.
they've been nip and tucking and working on details every day for 20 years to get there. It was not
great team.
Yeah, but it's not, but it doesn't, there's no like, oh, we're at the mountaintop, now we get to sit down and put our feet up. That's not how it works, because you have to, especially as you get older, right? Certain things get a little harder, right? Physically maybe, or maybe you don't have the energy for this, so you have to, the margins for error get smaller, I feel like. So
You need to write a book for real and just
About
all
what?
this. You could be David Goggins, dude.
David Goggins, that dude has abs on his abs.
Dude, you're the David Goggins of metal. You know, dude?
But I'm not nearly
You gotta
as
practice.
disciplined as that guy. And I want to overstate that I'm more disciplined than I am, because I think it's, it's just, I'm just, at least the moment, pretty obsessive about my career.
You need that, man. It's a lot of drive, dude.
Yeah, but keep in mind, but it's also, let's say that you have this much, right?
Yeah.
Time and energy to spend, right? So if you spend like 90% of it in your career and you only got 10% left for your relationship, then your girlfriend's gonna be mad,
it's a
mad at you all
balance.
the time
Yeah.
for not. Well, but to some degree, I think for me, sometimes an unhealthy balance and something I'm constantly trying to figure out. But I'm also, I'm just driven in that way, and always feeling like, even if the outside looking in is that you're killing it and crushing it, I always feel like I'm not. I always feel like I'm, every day that I'm not, let's say I have a couple days where maybe like this happened this week where I was just out of it and tired and wasn't productive. I'm like, damn, that's time lost that I could have been this far ahead. And then, because then you think about other people that are working hard, and it's not that it's a competition, but I just feel like most success isn't a surprise, right? If you know what I'm saying? If you're doing the right, and failure works the other way. If you're fucking up, then it'll probably is not going to work out. And if you're doing the right things, it'll work out. So it's like, don't be surprised. And that obviously bad luck happens, and bad things happen to good people, and good things happen to bad people, right? But I think most of the time, like, your state of things is a result of like what you do.
Yes.
Or in the energy you put out, right? Like, being, like if you're not in, don't be a dick. Don't be an asshole. Like if you're like, oh, I don't have any friends. It's like, yeah, because you're a fucking dick. Like I don't know any people that don't, people that, you're a result of like how you kind of present yourself. What you put out is what you get back for the most part.
Yeah.
So.
You see, this is like a sample of your ranting on your podcast. People love this. Hey, look, we got Blacktooth.
And they are rantings.
Kind of Blacktooth grin.
Incoherent. See, we were hiding this.
We are hiding this.
Okay.
Doc Coyle. God forbid.
Scott Bowling.
Bad wolves.
By the way, are
But what were you saying? You're like,
No,
you're like this. By the way.
me, I'm like a branding, marketing, like guy.
Genius.
Think about this. I don't know about a genius.
You're David
But I'm
Goggins
just
of
saying,
metal.
how do you not have a bowling alley in town? Like, how has this not happened?
Maybe we should.
Come on, bro.
You're
And by the way,
motivating me,
And
dude.
what is the secret? This guy has the best hair in the game, son.
Don't touch
I'm not
the hair.
I'm not touching the hair. I'm just saying, like, we need to like. Oh, let's drink this.
Yeah. You got the best, like, get metal lover of metal lover. David Goggins, baby.
See, he knows my hair isn't as good as his hair, so. There we go. No, but I'm saying we need to like get a doctor over here to like pull some samples, because this, whatever's in there genetically needs to go in like the Rogaine.
Yeah.
Or was it Propecia? I don't know what the hell these things are. But I'm saying we need to figure out how we can spread this out. That is just.
I get that.
wonderful.
Man. I have
It's
the
wonderful.
warrior hair face best friend's bod. I heard somebody say that. You see, like, no, like I need the Doc Coyle bod with the warrior. I don't know, man.
I'm working on it. Again, it's all a work in progress. I feel like
Dude,
my
the jean
doctor.
jacket is tight.
Is it too tight?
Oh,
Is it
Puck
tight?
Hockey. They sponsored the show.
Like this.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Of course,
this
thanks
is
for
amazing,
having me.
dude. Seriously.
I appreciate it. Hopefully I didn't say anything that's gonna get me.
Oh, you did. That was
shut
a lot of
down.
it. You said a lot of stuff. We're gonna actually bleep it all out,
It's all right.
except for the shot. Dude, thank you so much.
Thank you.
brother.
I've enjoyed
this.
this.
Is amazing, man.
Bro
Thank you
hugs,
so
what we
much.
do.
Bro hugs. Yes.
That's right.
I believe human
believe
and
I can
fish
fly.
can coexist peacefully.
Peacefully. R. Kelly, baby.